Joining us now is Brandon Tucker. Brandon is the founder of Trench Warfare Training, and he is also the Combine and Pro Day trainer for defensive linemen at Exos in Dallas. Brandon trains a number of NFL defensive linemen and is a skills teacher of sorts. Brandon, you can follow him on Twitter at TWF Training. Tuck, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you, Bob?
I'm getting by. I'm excited to talk to you here. I know we were all interested, as Jane's been talking about in her reports, and as everybody's been buzzing about. Everybody wants to know about Aldon Smith, and what a lot of people don't know necessarily is that before he was reinstated, before he was in the building, and as he was working back, but was still in the Dallas area, that you got to working with him. I know he was asked about it recently by Todd Archer, and had good things to say. So. I guess for all the fans listening and wanting to know, give us the lowdown on Aldon Smith and what your impressions have been of him while you guys have worked out this offseason.
So I got him late March, early April. His agent Ron Slavin sent him to me to get him reacclimated to playing football again. And we worked out every day, Monday through Friday for about 2.5 months. About 2.5 months we were going. And so just want to get his feet back underneath him.
So when you say you worked out 5 days a week for a couple of months, it seems like he took a really professional approach to wanting to get back in shape. What kind of shape was he in when you got him, and what did he look like when you were done?
So he was in decent shape, and he approached everything like a professional. He was in decent shape. You know, he had been training prior to getting to me, but he was more in kind of like marathon shape, boxing shape, versus being in football shape. So he was in shape. He just wasn't in the type of conditioning that you need to play 60, 70 plays a game.
What was it that stood out about him? We talked about this a little bit last week on NFL Network, but you said it had something to do with his hands.
Yeah, so I made the mistake of standing in front of him during the drill, and he delivered a blow like he's supposed to, and I foolishly did not have a pad out in front of me, and so he got to my chest, and I had to take a moment. It was like being hit by a battering ram or a tank. It was ridiculous. It was just absolutely ridiculous.
Wow.
What is it about? I mean, I know you and I have talked about this before, even off the air, that a lot of times guys entering the league and where there's probably the most lacking among defensive linemen in the NFL is how to use their hands, that they're not necessarily adept at that. I know that's not the case really from what you've said about Aldon. What is it about him that makes him so special in the way he uses his hands and that sort of benefit?
So with Aldon, first of all, I don't think he's a human being, right? I think he might be from Planet Football. The way that he's able to do things, the power that he possesses, he's just super special as it relates to that. But his football IQ is very, very high. He understands where to put his hands and when to put them there. And I mean, he's just phenomenal from that perspective. I mean, he knows how to play football. That's why he was, successful as he was before he took his sabbatical.
It's amazing because the narratives out there about football players, it's amazing how pervasive they can be without a lot of people actually contacting the player, getting to know them. And that's why I love that we have these wealth of contacts in Dallas. You can sort of get a sense of them. But were you surprised when you got him, hearing some of the narratives out there about where he was at just mentally?
Yes. I had several people talk to me about him prior to me getting him. And once I had a chance to visit with him and meet him, he was nothing like what was told to me prior to me getting him. He's, super caring guy, very, very gracious with his time. Very intellectual. He would even stay late after I worked with him and jump in with my high school and collegiate training group. At that time, we were supposed to be locked down, and I had a bunch of kids home from spring break at the university level, who couldn't go back. So they were training, and I mean, he'd come out and work with them and visit with them. I mean, he was just incredible. You know, just totally opposite of what you've heard a lot about him in the media.
I know that you've gotten some work in before with DeMarcus Lawrence, and that's a guy that you know a little bit. What kind of parallels are there? Would you say that those are two similar guys in terms of, because everybody knows DeMarcus Lawrence's football IQ and what an animal he is. Are those two similar like guys in the way they approach the game?
I would say from a football IQ standpoint, yes. You know, both of them are extremely hard workers, but two totally different personalities, man. It's like yin and yang. I think they're getting along so well just because they both want to be great. And so when you have guys that have that mindset, I mean, everything else kind of gets put to the side. But two totally different personalities between Tank and Floyd. All
right, well, elaborate. How are they so different?
Well, I mean, when you say elaborate, I mean, without being giving up too much intimate detail, you're talking about, you know, Tank, who does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, doesn't really like a bunch of fanfare. I mean, you know, you're talking about a guy that goes and spends time at the Frisco Boys and Girls Club. He has tremendous community. He's active in the community. Obviously, Floyd just got here, but hell, he's not as laid back. He's not as reserved. You know, he likes to enjoy himself. Whether it's you know, eating at hole in the walls all over the Metroplex, or just, you know, sitting back listening to weird genres of music, man. They're totally different. They're totally different. One, and plus Tank's a family man. He's got a family. You know, Aldon, you know, he does not have wife and children. So just two totally different personalities for sure.
All right, the other guy on this defensive line that I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about is Trysten Hill. There are a lot of people trying to draw comparisons between him and Taco Charlton, which a lot of people around here, Bobby, considered a bust. What separates Trysten from the Taco narrative, and why are we now hearing reports that Trysten has done this 360 all of a sudden in the offseason and is dazzling this new coaching staff? Is that just coach playing good cop all of a sudden, or are you really seeing that from him? Because to be fair, his teammates have noticed it.
Yeah, potentially it could be that. I think Trysten last year, kind of like Taco, came into a very, very different type of room. And so I think he had some expectations. Those expectations weren't there. And, you know, the room dictates a lot. You know, if you have guys in that room that you don't necessarily get along with, it's just like going to work every day with someone you don't like. And so you know, for a young guy, 21 years old, you know, still learning how to be a professional, you know, you can develop rabbit ears. I think Taco did that as well. But, you know, with the new staff and the new coach, Trysten approached it as a new beginning, man, a new opportunity. And he's taking advantage of it. He came out of a bad situation his last year in college. So his last 2 years of football, you know, just haven't been kind to him. And then all of a sudden, you know, you got a new head coach and a new system, and everyone gets to hit the reset button, and he's really, really taking advantage of that opportunity, doing all the right things.
And we've heard some discussion out there that Trysten has, you know, maybe has taken some responsibility himself into how things went last year, that maybe it's not so much, oh, I was a victim, that maybe he recognizes his own part in some of the struggles he had last year. Is that sort of what you've seen in your work with him, that he owns up to, you know, I need to do some things different this year?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we talked about. He and I was accountability, and he was 100% accountable, and he owned a lot of what happened last year. And I mean, and we talked about it in detail. You know, he felt like he was their first round pick since they didn't have one. And he thought things were going to be different once he got there, and they weren't. And so, you know, a lot of the things that happened, you know, he owned, which is, you know, once you start to do things like that, it shows your growth and maturity, and he's just not going to make those mistakes again. He's not going to make the same mistakes again. And I think he's dedicated himself this offseason to being a better football player. And I think it's showing. I think it's evident to people now that, you know, he's going to live up to the pig he was picked in the second round. So he's going to make some believers out of people this year.
Fundamentally, where have you seen him make changes to his game?
Great question. I think because he's so strong and powerful and explosive, you know, he can bend and do things that, you know, most guys his size aren't able to do. So from a fundamental standpoint, just being in great condition was huge for him this year. You know, being able to do whatever's asked of him at 100% is what we talked about a lot too. So other than that, man, you know, it was just him learning what they're trying to teach him. And it's a short curve with no OTA. So he's staying late. You know, he's doing everything he can to make sure that he stays on top of the curve.
We know how difficult it can be for defensive linemen in their rookie year. I know that another guy that you've gotten to work with is Neville Gallimore. Talk about just some of his traits and also what you think might be the biggest challenges for him in his learning curve heading into his rookie season.
Neville is a compact, strong, explosive defensive lineman. You know, the scheme that he played in at OU allowed him a lot of time to just run through gaps. And so if he was here in Marinelli's system, he would have looked just like a youthful, healthy Malik Collins. With the type of system that they're running now, he's got to, you know, learn to use his hands a lot better and striking at the point of attack, which is completely different than what he's done the last 4 years at OU. And then obviously with him being, you know, a Canadian player, you know, born in Canada and his formative years there, the brand of football is a little bit different. So he's being asked to do some things that he's not accustomed to doing. And once he gets that, he'll be just fine. You know, normally all those things would have been taken care of in OTAs, you know, but without us having them this year, you know, it's been a little bit challenging. And then secondly, just adjusting to the physicality and the pace of the game in the NFL versus Big 12, right? So it's a huge transition. I think he's in a great spot where they can afford to bring him along at a little bit of a slower pace than normally what you would have a guy in his situation because of the depth on the interior of the line before McCoy got hurt.
That was going to be my next question. It might be a little unfair to you because you haven't worked with these guys since they've been at camp and actually part of the install. But given the Gerald McCoy news, who do you see having the bigger edge to be that guy in the interior?
Tyrone Crawford. You know, Ty is versatile enough. I mean, he's been playing a little bit of nose guard. But, I mean, I expect for Ty to fill in most immediately. Obviously, Woods and Poe play the same position. And so the only other guys that you have on the team right now are your babies in that spot. You know, the two young fellas and Trysten and Neville. So immediately it would be Ty, I would expect. If they had to start a game tomorrow, I'd put money that it'd be Ty in there at the 3 technique.
You know, do you work with Tyrone Crawford at all?
I have not. I have not.
Yeah,
have been in the. Go ahead.
I was going to say, fans that aren't familiar with Tyrone, I feel like he was the missing link last year in that defensive room. I don't know if you've talked to a lot of guys about it, but when he got hurt, I felt like his leadership was really, really, they missed him. That's a guy that I always enjoyed seeing David Irving running his mouth in the locker room and Tyrone coming over there and being like, why are you talking to the media? Of course, it drove us crazy because it's like, oh, David's spilling all the tea, but you kind of need that sort of leader keeping the young guys accountable. So I'm glad he's back. I think Trysten Hill and Neville will benefit from him being back in the room. He's the one that got DeMarcus Lawrence to start riding his bike and get his weight down. They would ride their bikes every day to and from the facility. So,
right. Yeah, they were riding their bikes to Exos. I'd look up and there'd be 2 mountain bikes. Like, who's riding their bike up here? And it was, yeah, they rode those bikes everywhere.
That's a hike. How far is it from their house on the bike?
You're talking about 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a lot for large men on a mountain bike. For
sure, riding down the streets of Frisco, it was crazy.
They need to get that electric bike.
I guess last thing for you here, because I know you've got a workout group you got to get with.
Everybody's gone. We're good.
When you look at you referencing the different things they're teaching now, talking about Tom Sula versus Rod Marinelli, I guess. From your perspective, is that what you would say is going to be the biggest difference for fans who watch the defensive line this year? Is it more finesse from a Marinelli scheme versus power and a lot of push-pull from a Tom Sula scheme?
Yeah, you're going to see and don't get me wrong, I think that Rod and Big Cat did a really good job. I mean, the defensive line was always, very, 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 very well coached with the Cowboys under Coach Garrett. You're just going to see a different type of play this year because you're not going to have guys jetting up the field like they did all the time. You're going to see some of that odd surface. You'll see, Tank standing up. You'll see Floyd standing up, and so that just creates a nightmare scenario for offensive coordinators when you have those type of players either roaring off the edges or dropping back in coverage. So the schemes are it's like night and day, and they have the personnel to play what they're wanting to and being able to mix things up like they're going to this year.
Before we let you go, for fans that want a reference point, what tape should they pop in if they want a visual of what this defensive line is going to look like?
Easy. Go back to Aldon Smith, second year in the league, and look at that defense play football. They got after people big time, and they have the second coming of that right now. They have the second coming of that. They're gonna go the San Francisco's. What did he come out? 2011.
11, yeah.
11. Yeah, 11. So that go look at 13's film.
Okay.
12 and 13 when he was in San Francisco, and that's you're going to see a lot of that this year.
Always a wealth of information. Thank you so much for coming on here. We only get so much time with these new coaches to sort of get an assessment. So I always love when we can talk to people on the outside about the inside. So we appreciate you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on.